Okay, so welcome back, everybody, to my next interview. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to everybody. I am here today with Luis Moreno. So he's a fellow friend of mine in the world of sim racing here in the Philippines. And so just to get started with Luis, can you tell us the viewers who is Luis Moreno?
Hello guys, I am Luis Moreno, 22 years old, and I am a professional esports racing driver under Legion of Racers.
Oh wow! How long have you been affiliated with the Legion of Racers?
I've been affiliated with Legion of Racers since November last year, and I'm in contact with them for the 2020 season.
Oh, I see. How did that come about? Did they invite you? Did you join? Or
I joined in one of their tournaments last year, the LOR Online Season 2019, which was done in Gran Turismo Sport, and then the top three of that online championship get seeded in their finals, which happened in Game Start Asia 2019. That was in Singapore around October
oh,
14, if I remember correctly, October 12 and 13 rather. It's basically like their ESGS there in Singapore,
oh
and
wow,
in their finals there, they get the top three overall in that finals to be part of their team this year.
oh wow, wow! It truly must have been a big event,
Yep.
and it's in Singapore at that.
Yep, it was in
Nice.
Singapore.
Also, one many questions from the viewers right now, Luis. First off, let's start with what got you into the world of sim racing. We're curious, like how does one person like you get into the world of sim racing?
Well, we have to go back to the year 2013.
All
I
right.
would consider it more of an accidental encounter because back then sim racing wasn't really my thing. I was
Oh.
more into shooter games. There was this game back then called Mercenary Online. It was a third person shooter and I
Oh.
got addicted with it and I got affiliated with a clan called Anbu. Now, early
Oh.
2013, I met them in a major tournament in SM North. It was April 2013, and during that event, I got lucky in a raffle. So ever since that day, I always joined them whenever there are on-site events. Also, I wasn't as a player; I was just there to support and hoping to get a score in raffles or some deals. Eventually, we had another major event in September 2013 when I finally had an encounter with sim racing with the guys from SRPH. They had a booth there with a
Oh.
motion simulator. If I'm not mistaken, it was a Sim Experience Stage 1. At the same time, our guild had the finals there in that event. And then I saw SRPH's booth and I thought I gave it a try. And then they were actually doing a qualifying stage that day. It was a Saturday. I thought it was just a free play, but turns out to be I got myself into a tournament. I had to come back the following day because I was second fastest in that day, and they were taking the top four times.
Wow.
I
So
wasn't really planning to go back on Saturday, rather than on the following Sunday, but I had to because there was a major prize at stake. So I just went there, did my best in the finals. I wasn't expecting anything big. I was actually gunning at least third place for that mouse, but turns out I did better than I expected.
wow.
Although I was just like zero point 0.6 of a second to the champion. So
Wow.
ever since I continued because I saw, hey, I got good potential here in sim racing. So ever since I started shifting from shooters to sim racing, and that's how I began.
That transition was quite massive, huh?
Yep, it was massive.
From keyboard and mouse to actually a wheel and pedals.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So also, just to add to that question, what racing sim did you start out with? Like from that transition from shooters to sim racing, what was that game that you started out with?
Actually, when I started transitioning, I was already playing games like F1 from Codemasters. What else do I have here in my collection? I was doing Race Room in its early days, but just the free content. And I was still playing in a keyboard back then. And then
Whoa.
I also had a PlayStation 3 as well, so I was doing Gran Turismo 5. It was
Yes.
2013, so Gran Turismo 6 wasn't out yet, but it was
Yeah.
already announced.
Yeah.
Basically, racing games were like a side dish to me back then.
Oh, wow. Now I think it's the main course, I
Yes,
guess.
it's a main course now.
Yes. Also, you mentioned earlier that you actually tried Race Room in the keyboard.
Yes, I did.
How was that like? I mean, each finger on a certain key just to keep the car in motion.
I usually have custom mapping for the
Oh, there you
keyboards
go. Yeah.
to suit my style, because since I'm already used to the WASD movement in shooter games and GTA, I just had to map WASD as well on the cars, and then usually I
Yes.
just control my taps where I feel if the car is starting to turn or starting to like turn too much. But there was a downside when at around the same time I started sim racing, especially on the hairpins, the car doesn't want to turn much. So that's when I
Oh yeah.
pretty much reached the limit of using a keyboard on racing games like that. It's not like Need for Speed where it's basically assisted.
Yeah. It was actually one of the reasons why I asked with alternatives to a sim racing wheel is that the whole purpose of why I'm actually carrying out this interview is actually to promote awareness for sim racing, especially not just in the
Hmm.
country but for around the world. And eventually, we'll be also talking about how we can help the others get started in the world of sim racing.
Right.
So, also to move on to that, if I were to ask you, Luis, how would you recommend a person to get started in sim racing? Like, what do they need to get started?
First of all, to get started in sim racing, the most important thing is that you have to learn the fundamentals of racing. You have to learn the fundamentals of the basic racing line, braking, acceleration, cornering. In the early days of racing games in the PS1, most like Gran Turismo and some F1 games included like a license test before you could even do some racing on the big leagues, so
Yeah,
that you could get the feel of the fundamentals of racing in general.
nice,
Once you get the fundamentals right, then you can start racking in some consistent fast laps, and then slowly but surely you'll be able to get a grasp of sim racing as you progress.
nice. So, when it comes to fundamentals and actually taking the license tests within the games, what setup would you recommend them to start out with?
I would recommend not for beginners, not with a wheel.
Okay.
I would recommend them something like an Xbox 360 controller if they're using a PC,
Mhm.
or if they could just get the hang out of like whatever controller is included to them, like a PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 controller, because these controllers are like already fine tuned for most racing games available in the market. You just have to like get the feel of how you'll be able to turn using an analog stick, or for some people they still use a D-pad. But
Whoa.
basically you
Okay.
just have to focus on the fundamentals: when to brake, how do you tackle a corner, and then how would you accelerate out of the corner. And of course, I would advise people not to be afraid of using driving assist, because they are there for a reason. They are there to help beginners get the feel of how a car uh, how to control a car at high speeds.
That's true. That's true. Also,
Even I myself, when I was playing games like Race Room, GTR2 in particular, I
yes,
was actually using steering assist and anti-lock brakes, because of course when you're driving a keyboard you're just doing it digitally, so you
yes,
wouldn't be able to modulate the braking properly. So to begin with, don't be afraid to play around with the assist. Try to find what's comfortable to you. Don't focus on going too fast. Actually, that is rule number one. That is rule number one from what I've learned from my one of my old racing games, which is NASCAR Racing 2002 season. This racing
Oh
game right
yes.
here includes some tutorial videos like basics into racing, and then in the first video you will hear uh, your instructor telling you first rule is very simple: don't go too fast. You just have to focus on looking for a comfortable pace, because that is what this racing is all about, especially when you start participating in actual grid races or endurance races. You just have to find your pace.
So it really has, especially the old games, really have like they really have a support for grassroots experiences, don't they?
Yep.
Yeah. And also, I'm curious, Luis, are you leaning more on actual racing or esports?
Right now, I'm leaning more into supporting esports, but eventually there will come a time when you would pretty much reach your peak at esports. You really want to move on to actual driving. It's more like an imminent course, because
Ah, yes.
you cannot just be stuck in one particular field through your lifetime. You have to progress. You have to try out new things. You have to venture out into higher levels if you really want to make the most out of your career. And sooner or later, I definitely would be moving into real life motorsports when the opportunities are right.
Right. Wow, that's those are actually just big dreams, and actually persistence is actually the way to go for it, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. And also, our viewers would like to know, Luis, what is your secret to success? Like, being number one all the time is no piece of cake, right? It's no bed of
Yes.
roses. But
Hmm.
well, like, how does it help you get there? Like how do you get there to be like number one? Like, if you could share any secrets to success for the viewers.
I would say my biggest secret is that I basically try to enjoy as many racing games as possible, because each racing game has its own unique flavor. It has its own unique feel. And once you get the feel of each and every racing game or sim racing title available out there, you would be able to carry on whatever you've learned in this racing game, like for example, Assetto Corsa and iRacing, and then try to apply them into your other titles like Gran Turismo or F1, and then just try to have fun with these games. Don't be afraid to experiment this and that, and then try to carry over what you've learned. It's about diversity, because there are some others uh who stick to this particular racing game, and then when they shift into this other one, they struggle because they know so much about this, like title G, and then they move on to title A, and then they struggle in title A, although they do better in title G. And that is basically the secret that I could give. It's just about, having a good appreciation of what other racing games have to offer.
Nice.
Even the likes of Need for Speed, you could have fun enjoying, but at the same time try to learn something from them, like reaction time, for example. With
Yes,
the
definitely.
Because Need for Speed is so fast paced, you have to be very quick if you want to be successful in most of the missions, because the cops can just the cops can just catch you in the blink of an eye.
Yes, that's true.
And especially the spike strips, you can barely see them, but you know it's there. You just have to know how to react to their roadblocks or their spike strips and whatever.
Yeah.
So basically, each racing game has its own like skill set that can help you improve.
It's actually if I were to summarize what you said, it basically deals with the mindset and getting out with certain games, right?
Correct.
Because when I ask a fellow sim racer what's their opinion on getting multiple skills from other racing games, is that they got confused. I'm like, all right, the mindset is being confused, but rather he was actually able to learn a lot. But now you confirmed it to me that getting inspiration from other sim racing games actually really helps talaga. And
Yes, at
wow,
the start, basically it's hard, especially if you, let's say, make the hop from Gran Turismo to iRacing, because in iRacing there are no single player modes. It's just completely multiplayer. So you really get
Oh,
confused. Not to mention the tire mechanics. The tire model is different compared to other racing games. It has a unique tire model. You really have to get the hang out of it to make the most out of iRacing. So it's going to be confusing at the start, but once you have planted that feel in your mind on this particular title, once you get the feel of iRacing, it should be no problem for you later on to move from one racing to another. So basically, the more racing games you have, the more diverse you have, the more diversity you have, the more agile that you can be. You can just switch from one racing game to another without any problem.
nice. Basically, just to also add
Yeah.
to that, it makes you flexible
Yes. Yes, it makes you
depending on
right.
what challenge or tournament comes up, right?
Right.
Especially
Yep.
like for you, Luis, from what I've noticed, you actually participate in Race Room and Gran Turismo. I mean,
Yes.
they don't feel the same, but they
Yes, they
don't,
definitely don't feel the same.
yeah, they don't feel the same, but for some reason you're still able to play. So I'm like, wow, the skill you need to have per game should not match at one point, but somehow you make them match.
Yep.
So that's one big value that I see. And
Hmm.
also, what is your biggest takeaway from your experiences in sim racing? Because the reason why I ask this question is that some viewers are asking me like, what is the value that we can get from sim racing? I'm curious of your answer.
In sim racing, you could learn a lot from camaraderie because the key to success is basically, helping one another. And one of the biggest values I've learned in sim racing is that if you're not competing with the big guys, you won't be able to improve
True.
because you have to face them if you want to progress to the next level, because you can learn something from them. How do they differ from your style, and how would you be able to emulate, if not imitate, from their driving style? Going up against like the guys of Saika and Gran Turismo, or Akagi, I forgot what their actual name is, but once you start competing with the big guns, it's okay to, like, place in the midfield, but seeing them drive is a good start. Seeing how they drive, seeing how they tackle the corners. Once you get the grasp out of those things, you would be able to, eventually put them into your mindset and then try to emulate them once you start doing some practice laps. Before you know it, you'll be able to keep up with them later on.
Nice. So wow. Basically, if I were to summarize that, basically, if you are up against the big guys, you actually model what they do, and eventually it turns out in your favor the more you actually are practicing with them, right?
As much as possible, yes.
Nice, nice. Wow, that's actually it actually takes courage to even do that because the big guys out there, they just race for growth, not just for
Yeah.
fun. Am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
basically you shouldn't be intimidated, but at the same time,
yeah,
don't forget to have fun always. Always
yes.
don't forget to have fun. Even if you're up against these guys, remember, you're still pretty much doing a game. So part of that is having fun.
That's right. That's right. That's very very accurate, especially at a time like this, given the pandemic. We are forced to go online, and the consumption of online content is at an all time high.
Yep.
So also one of the things why we're raising awareness is that we can encourage the community to grow even more because from what I see right now, like Sim Racing PH has this VBTI Cup almost every
Hmm.
Sunday. And
Yep.
recently, Boston Racing School launched an event for frontliners, and it's a very good cause, and I really, really support them. And wow, the platform is sim racing, and many people are asking me, is like, how do we get into that? So this is how we got here.
Right.
So and also, Luis, do you have like a fan page or a channel where the viewers can reach out to you in case they want to connect with you or they can ask you questions?
Yes, you could check out my Facebook fan page. That is Luis Moreno Sim Racing.
All right. And
Yes, and I also plan to do some streaming in the near future,
all
and
right.
but I have yet to announce which platform I would be using because it's hard to pick which is the most optimal platform. That's why I still often do test streams, try to find which is optimal. But when that time comes, I will pretty much announce what platform would that be. So
All
for
right.
now, tune in to Luis Moreno Sim Racing. Most of the updates are coming from there.
Nice. Well, I am very excited for. I know. I'm excited for your future plans. And also, it says here that you're actually also affiliated with sila the Motorsports. You guys are
Yes,
actually teammates, I think, in Gran Turismo Sport.
yes, we founded that team back in 2016, and we usually roll together in Gran Turismo Sport up until the time I joined LOR.
Hmm.
But we still join practices every now and then because sometimes my teammates are not available, they're at school, so usually in the afternoon I pretty much just open the practices depending on what the races are there. And then most of the time we usually just play GTA and do some GTA races, have
Oh
fun out
yeah,
there just to take a break.
yeah,
But
yeah.
for now, I'm just taking I'm more focused into LOR. But of course, you should not forget to help out friends every now and then.
Of course, of course. And also, if I'm correct, you mentioned it was created in around 2016. Um,
Yes.
am I correct in assuming that that was the time that Nissan GT Academy was in the Philippines?
That was its second year in 2016,
Second
GT
year,
Academy. It was its second year in the Philippines.
I
GT
see.
Academy was in 2015. Their first
Oh,
season was in 2015.
I see.
But by 2016, it wasn't just only GT Academy that was popping up in the radars of sim racing in the Philippines. There were other events like one from Toyota Lipa, and then we were also joining Project Cars in ESL. So
Wow,
we ended up forming a team for those games.
nice. So wow, it those connections go way back from even before Nissan GT Academy, I'm assuming.
Actually, it was after GT Academy
Oh,
already.
after. My bad.
After, pretty much after.
Yeah. It's actually I was actually a spectator during those times during
Mm-hmm.
Nissan GT Academy, and one thing that got my attention is that the requirements to actually progress. Like I saw there were fitness events, there were eliminations, and wow,
Mm-hmm.
it was pretty intense. So were those like requirements or challenges? I'm not quite
Those
sure.
those were the challenges in the national finals. There were
Oh, okay.
four challenges in the national finals. You have the fitness challenge, you have the driving challenge, which is basically like an autocross course, a gymkhana, whatever they call it. I still often confuse the two. And then you have the simulator challenge, and then you have the
Mm.
media challenge.
Oh, wow. Nice. There are a lot of challenges, but I only watch them because either from a distance or from YouTube. But wow, it actually clears out all my assumptions during that time.
Mhm.
Also, Luis, what are your last words on what is racing simulation for you in a nutshell? Like,
Racing simulation,
yeah.
in a nutshell, is basically um, simulating or replicating the dynamics of real world racing as
Mhm.
close as possible in a virtual environment.
See, wow. So for the viewers watching, here you go. This is the one-liner from Luis Moreno, and hopefully you feel free to rewind this video if you need to review what he has shared with us. And guys, this has delivered massive value to everybody, and I hope you can share this video to actually help raise awareness for sim racing. Because given this pandemic, there are no live races as of now. Am I right, Luis? Yeah,
Yes, no, not much live races right
not much
now.
live races right now. Even F1, WRC, they're all going online. So
Yep.
experience it now, and later on when things go back to normal, I guarantee you will miss the free times during the pandemic. And everybody, thank you for watching. And Luis, do you have any last minute shout outs to anyone who you want to greet?
Too many to greet actually, but I would just like to give a shout out to Legion of Racers, my team, for giving me good support. My good buddy Terence Dalyave, who's having fun in most games right now, and uh, looking forward to another set of Kupal Cup races next week. It's good fun. And also like to give a shout out to my family who has been supportive through my sim racing career. And yeah, just too many mentioned. To all my friends who, in sim racing, shout out to all my friends in sim racing. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And also to the group Sim Wheel Sessions, guys, we got one. So looking forward to the next sim racing sessions, and hopefully to the viewers watching, please do stand by for the next interview. There will be more coming up, and I guarantee you, massive value is about to be made. And I believe my time here is done, but your journey in sim racing is just about to begin. So thank you everybody for watching, and Luis, thank you for your time. I know your time is very valuable, and to the viewers watching, I will see you in the next video.
Thank you. Bye bye.